Switch, putting the K in magic. I'm Joanna DeVoe, and you're watching another video on shadow work. This time it's called Letting Up on Your Trigger Finger and Stepping into the Magic Mirror, which is really just a cutesy way of addressing two of the three issues that I brought up in the last video I made about shadow work, which was about bringing your shadow into the light and just starting to recognize your shadow for what it is. And I suggested three little tricks for doing that, and one was triggers, another was repeat issues, and the third was mirror work. This time I'm going to just address the triggers and the mirror work because those two can really require some immediate attention, and then once you've done a little bit of work on your triggers and mirror work, you will find that they are really just part of your repeat issues. Your triggers and the judgments that you make on people are things that will happen again and again and again. The same things will trigger you, or like things will trigger you again and again and again, and you are likely to have the same kind of judgments on other people, which are really just projections. You're just projecting the way you feel about yourself, or the way you want to feel about yourself, or the way you don't want to feel about yourself onto other people, and seeing those qualities in other people. I outlined all of this in a blog post, which you can read down below by either clicking on the link if you're watching this on YouTube, or just sitting pretty if you're on my blog and reading down to the bottom of the page, because this is a huge topic, and I'm going to attempt to address it in 3, maybe 4 videos. So this video I'm going to squish together the triggers and the mirror work, and I'm going to go pretty fast. So first things first, I think it's really important to get a handle on your triggers and to be able to deal with them in the moment, because these are the things that probably cause you a lot of embarrassment or shame, or even threaten your job or your marriage or your friendships or your health. So it's good to bring those issues into the light as soon as possible, and to also learn how to deal with them so that you don't get triggered into mouthing off or engaging in some impulsive behavior that you later come to regret. I have 5 suggestions for dealing with your trigger, and the first is a rather good piece of news, and that is mindfulness. If you can be mindful of your triggers on a regular basis, and that just means be aware of what's triggering you. Once you find yourself being triggered, once you're running to the refrigerator because you feel uncomfortable and you need to soothe yourself with a nice tasty snack, or you just caught yourself yelling at your husband or snapping at him for some small thing that he did, or maybe, you know, mouthing off to your boss. Once you've caught yourself in the behavior, you can be mindful of, oh, I think something just triggered me. What made me smoke that cigarette? What made me snap at my kids? Why did I do that? Eventually, if you're mindful enough, it will really take the charge out of it. Just being aware of it, just shining some light on it, can really start to do its own work on the trigger, and then pretty soon you will catch yourself before you mouth off, before you stuff your face with that donut, or before you run to the bar to go drown your sorrows. And really, triggers can be as simple as boredom. In fact, a lot of people that have a problem with overeating or a variety of addictions, they don't know how to deal with boredom and a sense of emptiness in their life. They have to constantly fill that hole with something, literally or figuratively. So if you find yourself running to the refrigerator again because you just feel strangely uncomfortable but you can't put your finger on why, be mindful of that. Just notice that it's happening. Just recognize that it's happening, and eventually, if you keep recognizing that it's happening, an awareness is going to bubble to the surface, and you're going to start getting some answers for yourself. Number 2 is breath work, which is also known as pranayama in Sanskrit. And it's really, I won't even go there because I don't want to confuse you. For those of you who practice yoga, you already know what pranayama is. But for the rest of you, all you need to know is that Being conscious of your breath and consciously working with your breath is an amazing tool for stress relief and for bringing yourself into the moment and back into your body if you found yourself going up into your head or you're about to just explode or you can't really get a handle on your emotions. My favorite trick for doing breath work is just to take a big, deep belly breath, and that means not only filling up your chest and your lungs with air, but also extending your belly full to a full extension, filling it up with air, and then holding it at the top of your inhale and counting to 3 slowly. 1, 2, 3. And then slowly exhaling all of the breath out, all the way out to where your stomach is pulling in and trying to touch your spine. Your belly button is trying to make contact with your spine. Of course it won't really, but that's a good visualization to have for when you're trying to just exhale every little bit of air from your lungs. And if you do that a couple of times, the conscious act of breathing, just putting your mind on the act of breathing, will take you out of the situation of whatever it is that has triggered you. And also, just getting more oxygen into your body is extremely good for you and soothing and relaxing. So it's working on a couple of different levels to bring you out of the moment and to bring you into some peace so that you can then go back and be like, what triggered me? Why did I need to do that just now? And I recommend that once you have kind of disengaged from whatever has triggered you, that you just keep a list, either a mental checklist or on a literal piece of paper, of what are the things that are triggering you throughout your day. And then when you have some time on a weekend or one evening, you can actually sit down and do some more intensive shadow work. You can start to notice the themes and the repeat patterns and dig a little bit deeper. And the next video that I make about this, we'll talk more about that. But for now, just not only bringing your triggers into the light and knowing what they are, but then learning how to deal with them so that they don't wreak havoc in your life is a good next step to take. And really just on theme with that, another trick, number 3, is to just call a timeout. So if you're driving in your car and you're freaking out about something, maybe someone in your family is driving you crazy, the kids are in the back seat going, "Dad, she's touching me! Stop touching me!" And you feel like you're just gonna freak out on your family. Pull the car over. It'll scare the crap out of your family, so it'll have the added benefit of probably shutting everybody up. But it's really just for yourself. Pull the car over, get out of the car, and take a couple of cleansing breaths, or just walk around the car a couple of times and calm yourself down before you get back into the car, and you can just address everybody from a calm level and tell them how it's going to be. It's the same thing if you're at home and you're starting to find yourself getting into an argument with your spouse, or if you're at work and a coworker is really triggering you. Leave. Get out of there. Call a timeout. Maybe you don't have to literally say that you need a timeout. Maybe you can just leave the room and go on a little walk, or just step outside, kick your shoes off, walk around barefoot on the grass or the cement. That would be ideal. But often you need to tell the person, I think I'm just getting a little worked up here, or I'm feeling too charged up, or I just need a little bit of time to think. I'm going to step out for a minute and I will get back to you on that. If you can calmly extract yourself from the situation and get just a little bit of distance from it, then you can maybe better identify what has triggered with you and put that in your back pocket for some later shadow work and go back in to deal with the situation like a grown-up. If it's the refrigerator that's calling to you, or the liquor cabinet, or that secret pack of cigarettes that you keep in the back of your underwear drawer, same applies. Instead of going and reaching for whatever it is you use to self-soothe, just walk outside, take a walk around the block, do something different, and see if that urge doesn't pass for you, and maybe if you can identify what's triggering you, and maybe something more productive that can help you deal with that and set a new, more positive habit for yourself. Tip number 4 is, again, it's very similar to tip number 2 and 3, and this one is a countdown. Count backward in your mind, silently to yourself, maybe out loud if you're alone, down from 10 to 1. And the trick with the countdown is to add a little bit of humor to it, because that really just takes the piss out of a stressful moment. And the way I like to do that is I like to count baby boogers, fluffy bunnies, or coconuts. So when you're in like a freaky situation and you're getting upset, you're waiting in a super long line at the grocery store and you feel like you cannot handle it one more second, or your mom is on the phone nagging you in like a huge monologue that you can't get a word in edgewise, just go up into your brain and quietly count to yourself 10 baby boogers, 9 baby boogers, 8 baby boogers, 7 baby boogers, and by the time you get to 1 baby booger, you probably will find that your mood has shifted a little bit, or at least enough to where you can get a handle on whatever reaction you were going to have. And again, take that trigger and tuck it away for another day when you're ready to do some deeper shadow work. It's a lot like what I told you earlier about, hallelujah, my feet don't stink today. It's about breaking the pattern. I think I just spit on you. Sorry. I'm glad this is just a camera, not an actual person. It's about breaking your pattern, and humor is one of the best ways to do that. So if you can be mindful enough to realize that you are about to be set off, inject a little humor into it. A countdown is a great way to do that. 10 coconuts, 9 coconuts, 8 coconuts, 7 coconuts. Tip number 5 is also very sweet. It is called M&Ms. And no, I'm not talking about little tasty morsels of chocolate. I am talking about mudras and mantras. And when you put a mudra with a mantra, it has a wonderful effect of bringing you into the moment, connecting you with your body, and if you do it often enough and you program your body often enough using a mantra and a mudra together, the same mantra and the same mudra together, it will work faster and faster for you, and it will start to have an instant effect. As Christopher Pinzak teaches, it will be like instant magic. So what is a mudra? A mudra is a spiritual gesture or a hand movement that is designed to direct energy. My favorite one looks like this, like you're making the OK symbol, and I find that the harder you press with your pointer finger and your thumb, the harder you press them together, the better it works. I like to do it on both hands at the same time. And just in doing this, I do it a lot, so maybe that's why, but just in doing this, I already start to feel myself kind of grounding, and it's a very calming, soothing thing to do. You'd be surprised. And then you can use a mantra. I like to use, I am safe, all is well in my world, something like that. Whatever it is that you have a problem with, if you find yourself feeling threatened frequently by other people or in certain situations, I am safe, all is well is a very good one to use. And the brilliant thing about M&Ms is that it's rather discreet. So it's something that you can use in public without calling a lot of attention to yourself, or hopefully any attention to yourself, and it's something that you can use at work. You can just do this under your desk or the conference table and just think in your mind, I am safe, all is well, I am safe, all is well. And so it's just your little secret, just for yourself, that nobody else has to know, and it works wonders. You can also just cross your fingers like that. This works extremely well, but it's a little more conspicuous, so I don't recommend it, but I do use this at home. You just take the heels of your hand and push them together. I don't even know if that qualifies as an official mudra, but it has an amazing ability to take energy that's like trapped in your body and making you feel anxious, and it just like pushes that energy out and really grounds you to the moment. So maybe if you're a person who is struggling with something more in private, more impulsive things at home, maybe if you're a housewife, for example, and you're having a hard time with your kids, maybe that will work for you. I don't know. But find what works for you and stick to it. Repetition really counts when you are trying to program your mind and set a new trigger for yourself. So you've got that like unconscious trigger that sets you off. Well, you're going to replace that with a conscious trigger that you find calming and soothing. And once again, you're going to take whatever it is that's triggering you, take note of it, and save it for later. And then the second part of this has to do with mirror work. And mirror work is, like I said, it's all about the things that you project onto other people, and it's about judgments that you make on other people. And now I'm not talking about when you're at the grocery store and you see a mom yanking her kid around by the arm and being abusive and screaming at him in public. It's quite natural to have a judgment on that mom as being abusive, and maybe you need to even take some action and call the authorities, or at least confront the woman and tell her that that's not okay, and that if she doesn't stop, you're going to call the authorities. That is not a projection. That is a healthy judgment that you're making on a situation. But many of our judgments, maybe even most of our judgments on other people, have to do with our shadow side trying to emerge and show itself. But most of us are so uncomfortable and afraid of our shadow that rather than face it head on, we recognize it in other people. So you can use this to your advantage and see other people as a mirror and a reflection of what it is you need to work on. One way that you can do that is to follow the trail of judgment. This is actually a very simple thing to do, but it can be long and complicated in the explanation. I know this because I just wrote the blog post for this video and it was very like, ooh, this is trickier to explain than it is to actually do. So I'm going to use the example that I used in my blog post, and hopefully you can follow me. The way that you would do this is when you're having a judgment on somebody, when you're being critical of another person, you try following the point that your judgment is trying to make to its final conclusion. So the way that would look is if you see somebody driving like a hot car, a really flashy car, and they're wearing a really nice suit, and they get out and they're looking all money, your first thought is, I can't stand greedy people. If you catch yourself having a judgment like that, the next thing you want to do to follow it down the rabbit hole is to ask yourself why. So you would say, I can't stand greedy people because, and the answer may be different for you, but I'm just going to say as an example, because they are selfish. I can't stand greedy people because they are selfish. And then you repeat the process again, and you continue on with that because, why inquiry until you get to the bottom of what's really bothering you. So you would say, I don't like selfish people because they take more than they need. Why? Why? Because I hate people who take more than they need, because then there won't be enough for the rest of us. And then you keep going. You ask why again. Because why? I worry that there won't be enough for the rest of us because then there won't be enough for me. Aha! That is what you're trying to get to. You don't hate greedy people. You worry that there's not going to be enough for you. So maybe when a greedy person is pushing a button in you or causing you a reaction, maybe that is a part of yourself that's telling you you need to be a little bit more greedy in your life. And how would it be helpful to be a little bit more greedy in your life? And maybe you don't necessarily need to be greedy, but what is related to being greedy? What do you need to do to be more proactive in taking care of yourself? What can you do to make sure that your needs are met? So that when you have a run-in with a greedy person, you don't get that charged feeling because you know that your needs are met and that there's going to be enough for everyone and that you will get what you need. I hope that makes sense, because now I'm moving on to number 2, which is to step into the mirror, which is a form of active imagination. It's a form of visualization. So let's say that you see that woman that we talked about earlier who walked into the party and she's wearing a super skin-tight, low-cut dress and high heels, and she's really flashy and she's getting the attention of all the men, and you have a judgment on her of being a slut or an attention hog, and it's really pushing your buttons and upsetting you. What you can do is visualize in your mind what it is that's upsetting you. So you picture that woman in her skin-tight red dress, flirting with all of the men and engaging in that behavior that is upsetting you. And once you have a really clear picture in your mind and you can really feel it and you're really in touch with the emotion that it generates, you then imagine yourself in that position. It's the exact same situation, it's the exact same dress, it's the exact same flirtation, except it's you in the dress and it's you doing the flirtation. And then you ask yourself, how does that make me feel? How do I feel? What kind of emotions are coming up for me now? How would it feel to be in that situation? Do I feel afraid, ashamed, worried, vulnerable? Maybe you feel powerful and strong. It's not always a negative thing. It could just be a part of yourself that's saying that you need to be more free with your sexuality, or you want to feel more empowered. Maybe it's not really her sexiness that's upsetting you, or sluttiness as you've judged it. Maybe it's the sense of power that she appears to have and the way that she seems to be commanding attention in the room that you're after. So putting yourself in the other person's shoes and stepping into that mirror can really give you a better idea of what quality is trying to come out in you and what hidden shadow is trying to make itself known. And then my third tip is really, I'm just redirecting you over to Byron Katie again, who I've mentioned before. Go check out her work. It's called The Work at thework.com, and you can pull up a free PDF called the Judge Your Neighbor Worksheet. And I just think her work is great, and she doesn't technically call it shadow work, but it's very much in line with doing all of this kind of inquiry into yourself and into your darker sides, and I find it very healing. I was a little put off when I first encountered Byron Katie because she's this very sweet, grandmotherly kind of woman, and I just wasn't ready for that kind of energy in my life. I was feeling very like kick-ass and rock and roll, and I wasn't ready for that kind of delivery until I reached a point in my life when I was just desperate for anything, and somehow I found my way back to her, and it was very helpful. So check her out, Byron Katie. There will be a link down below in the blog post to go check out the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, and I will be back next week with the third video, maybe the final video. We'll see if I can like squeeze the rest of what I want to say into one more video, maybe two, I'm not sure. But in the meantime, have a lovely day, much love, and peace.